let's talk about the I'm Glad I'm Dead full special. Okay, this is absolutely blowing up right now. I think over on YouTube, let me take a quick look here at just I don't know, where's the thing? The full special is currently sitting at 219,000 views. And yesterday, when I showcased this on Boulder Talk Radio, this was only at like 55,000 views. So this thing is blowing up. A lot of people are talking about it, and a lot of people are pretty upset about it. But I wanted to show you guys just a brief further bit of the show where this is where, Carlin is very much a liberal, very left-leaning. You could almost call him a social justice warrior to some extent, but because he'll call out the establishment and he talks a lot of fucking shit. All right. But like, just listen to this and just tell me again, if this doesn't at least have the inflections and the dialogue and the vibes and the, idea of what Carlin was.
Come to think of it, that sounds a lot like heaven, don't it? While you're letting that sink in, let's get back to conservatives hating trans people for no reason. Some of the arguments they use to justify their transphobia seem like a bit of a stretch to me. Well, I don't want a man to be able to walk into a women's restroom and see my wife naked. First of all, what in the fuck is your wife doing naked in a public bathroom? And second of all, if you really think there is a significant number of guys who want to watch your wife take a shit, you should start an OnlyFans immediately. And by the way, for anyone who thinks Jesus cares about which bathroom somebody uses, he was shitting in a hole he dug with his own fucking hands. Just like everybody else 2,000 fucking years ago. The right likes to bring up that kids are too young to know if they're trans or gay, so they have to ban any books that talk about gender identity or sexuality from the school libraries. That's how you're going to save the children, by taking books out of a library. Hey, dipshits, you can take the whole fucking library. We have the internet now. And they love talking about how small the trans community is. They say trans people make up such a small percentage of the population that they shouldn't get to have any input in legislation, even laws that will directly affect their communities and lives. Funny how that same argument doesn't apply to members of the NRA. But I have to admit, the one point they really hang their hat on is one that the rest of the country is still undecided on too. Sports. Everybody saw the video of the high school volleyball player who got her nose broken by a trans player spiking the ball. Everybody knows about Leah Thomas winning a Division I swimming title. It's hard for most people to watch her highlight reel and not at least wonder if maybe she had a little bit of an unfair advantage. And once that thought is out there in the American town square, it's hard to get rid of. But I think there's a way, because for every superstar like Leah Thomas, there are 1,000 trans athletes who are absolutely mediocre. And there are even more who are fucking terrible. Just like it is with cis athletes, not everyone can be great. I think all we need to do to change hearts and minds is start making compilation videos of trans athletes performing miserably in their chosen sports. All it would take is one video of a transgender getting dunked on to go viral, and then everybody could unpucker their assholes about the issue and move on to other things. And I just want to preface what I'm going to say next by explaining that I mean no offense to the incredible swimmers of the world. Your accomplishments and dedication are truly inspirational, but it's fucking swimming. The world is teetering closer and closer to the edge of World War III on a daily basis, and the American public is debating who can and can't compete in recreational fucking floating. You almost had another civil war. For fuck's sake, 2,000 people stormed the United States Capitol building with the goal of murdering politicians. Actually, when I put it like that, it doesn't sound so bad. The point is, the land of the free and the home of the brave is hanging on by a thread. And people's most pressing concern is whose picture is on a can of fucking Bud Light. This
See, like I just wanted to play that couple minute segment because the whole thing is like this. All right, the whole thing is like this. You know, Real Talks here says the voice is really good. Anna says the Carlin voice is good, but the audience sounds off. I mean, they had to add the audience applause, right? You had to have the applause, and they found various probably stock audio of applause lines and tried to mix it up a little bit to make it kind of have different reactions rather than the same one over and over again. That's part of the production of this whole thing. It's one of the reasons why it might sound a little off, but it does add legitimacy to what you're hearing. Because if a comedian is just talking into a microphone without somebody there to bounce off of, they just sound like an old man getting ready to write angry letters to the government. I say this as an asshole who talks into a microphone in an empty room to a crowd of, you know, between 50 and 100 people quite often. And I try to be as funny as humanly possible. And one of the only ways to do that, to gauge the reaction, is to look at whether or not Music Man laughs his ass off. That's a gauge for me, by the way. If I get those responses from Music Man on a joke I make, I know I'm doing something well by my audience. So thank you for being the goddamn canary in the fucking coal mine, Music Man. I appreciate that. See, he's doing it again. But it's one of those things where it's like they were able to nail the pacing. They're able to nail the whole situation. And I can pretty much tell you how they made it. Because it's not all AI. We have to remember that. There is a lot of human input, a lot of human crafting in order for this to be a thing. But the way that the Dudesy podcast is talking about this is acting like they had no knowledge of it. It's kayfabe. If you watch the actual podcast that came out right before this, like 2 days ago, and I did listen to that today as well, one of the things that they talked about was like, they were like, oh my God, I can't believe this is real. Oh my God, I can't believe like the AI did this. But the AI, again, only did so much. So let's kind of talk about how they did that, because I can explain it to you. I did a little bit on Twitter, but I can explain it again in regards to all of this, right? So basically, for one, they also use Canva to make this thumbnail, just as a thing. I also can identify Canva whenever Canva is used, because I've been using this shit for quite some time. But the idea here is that they took all of the transcripts from George Carlin's various specials, probably all 14 of them that are out there, many of whom are on YouTube, free to watch. They went to probably YouTube transcript and they grabbed all of that commentary, and they probably picked and chose some of the, let's say, some of his highlights, right? Some of his highlights ones, like the 7 words you can't say on TV, things like that. Maybe some of his older material, which was more kind of, again, he died in 2008. So he died over 15 years ago, unfortunately, but still he was talking about current events up until his death. So there's that. So they probably plugged all that into ChatGPT 4, which has the ability to look at and analyze text that you put into it. And then they had it figure out a comedy special based upon those specific topics, right? And if you go back and you look at these specific topics, you'll see, as I kind of run through this here, you get an idea of the chapters. So the chapters is you have the intro, you have God, mass shootings, reality TV, Trump and the election, the American class system, streaming services, the two-party system, trans Americans, social media, cops, homelessness, being dead, AI, language, billionaires, technology, identity, and dying. And what they did is they were like, write me a bit in the voice of George Carlin about these topics. And they were able to really kind of figure it out. All right. Like, does Canva do AI? It does. It does. Not very good, though, but it does. So Jay David says here, Carlin once says he doesn't believe in God. He believes in Joe Pesci. Give Joe Pesci a bat and he takes care of business. Pretty fucking much. Pretty fucking much. AI talking about AI. Kind of. It's interesting. But what they did is, so they went into the AI and they got the AI to craft these jokes. Then what they probably did is they took a look at the jokes themselves and they retooled them. They fixed them. They probably wrote them, rewrote them. They workshopped these jokes. Any comedian will workshop their jokes. GPT can be pretty entertaining at times, and some of the things that it says, it's intelligent, and so it can be quippy. But in order to really nail it, Will Sasso is on the Dudesy podcast, and Will Sasso it was talking about how like George Carlin is like his favorite comedian of all time, and he's an impressionist. So it really then makes you wonder, like, were they just formulating these into rants that sound like George Carlin? Most likely. So then how do they get the voice? How do they get the performance? Because that's the other part of this. Again, that's not something that is put into a text-to-speech generator. And you're not you don't have that. So what they had to do is they had to go through each and every one of these segments, and they had to record it themselves in the style of George Carlin, in the pacing, in the frenetic ranting. Everything had to be as close to Carlin as humanly possible. And again, Will Sasso is a comedian and an impressionist. He was on Mad TV the first couple seasons. He was in like the Three Stooges movie. Will Sasso's been around for like 30 years now. All right. And I think he's great. I think he's funny as shit. But so I know this was him. So they did that. And then they recorded that audio. They cleaned up the audio. They edited the audio. And they probably then took all of that into either one clip, paid a lot of money for Elevenlabs, I think $20 a month or something like that for 2 hours. They probably paid more, like $100 for like 10 hours, I think. And then they went through and they just kept getting speech to speech on Elevenlabs on a model that's trained on what appears to be midlife George Carlin, slightly younger, like maybe like late 80s, early 90s George Carlin, rather than late 90s, early 2000s and stuff. And then they ran through it and they got everything that they needed. And you can hear some edits, by the way, while listening to this. I've done enough audio editing over the years. There's certain things you can pick out. And so then they took that same script and they put that into ChatGPT, probably Dall-E 3, and prompted it. We need 16:9 images off of each paragraph in this text, and probably just fed it one at a time or did it a little bit over a time. And then it just kept giving them the images that they were able to take because they were relevant to the topic at hand. And then they were able to build out what they needed from that. So that to me is really fascinating that they were able to do that. And then they added in the sound effects with everybody, and they added it in, like they made it sound through audio processing, that it was coming in through a microphone, that it was being recorded in an open space. So they did some audio post-production with it to make it sound more legitimate. And what we're seeing here is only a little bit of AI. Okay? Like only a little bit of some of it, right? Because you figure it wrote the script, but they refined the script. They performed it, and then it just adapted the performance into a model that was trained on different versions of George Carlin's voice. That is why it's so fascinating, because people are really fucking mad at this. Like, they're really fucking mad at this. But they also don't understand how it came to be. And that is one of the reasons why I think it's the most interesting thing to come out of 2024 thus far. Because what people did, what the human element was to get this thing over the edge and to be as quote unquote good as it is, goes to show you that with a little bit of work, some of this AI stuff can work out pretty damn well. And that's why people are upset. But it goes a little bit further than that now. We kind of got into the controversy bit of it, right? So we see here that George Carlin's daughter slams AI-generated comedy special imitating her late father. She says here that my dad spent a lifetime perfecting his craft. from his very human life, brain, and imagination. No machine will ever replace his genius. But the thing is, the machine didn't replace the genius. The machine just put a layer on top of somebody else's performance who was imitating George Carlin, using their life, their brain, their imagination to create this performance that was then run through a filter of all things, run through a filter, because the AI at Elevenlabs will not be able to speak as frenetically and as frantically and as rapidly and as consistent as what it is that they did. So there's more than that there, right? Like, so she was not, she says here, these AI generated products are clever attempts at trying to recreate a mind that will never exist again. So let's let the artist's work speak for itself. Humans are so afraid of the void that we can't let go of what's fallen into it. Stay there. Here's an idea. How about we give some actual living human comedians a listen to? But if you want to listen to the genuine George Carlin, he has 14 specials that you can find anywhere. You know what I mean? And that's kind of what it is. So in the AI, the Dudesy AI, which is just something done through GPT and Elevenlabs, is saying that it was all an impersonation. And that's all it is. But that's why it's fascinating. Because they were able to take something like this and get something that a lot of people really seem to get a kick out of, but a lot of people really seem to hate. And now, tonight, just a little bit ago, George Carlin estate threatens legal action over AI special. It's not his material. It's not his voice. Kelly Carlin tells the Daily Beast. So they need to take the name off because it's not George Carlin. But it's a George Carlin impersonation. I mean, how much of that would technically fall under fair use? They say in the beginning and in the end, this is not George Carlin. He does not say in any bit of time during the show that it's George Carlin. He just says that he's alive, he's dead, brought back. Comedians are brought back, but he never says his name directly. As far as I remember, I could be wrong. I got to double check that again. But also, it's like, are they making money off of this? I don't know. I honestly do not know if they are. Let me take a look here. It looks like, so I'm looking at this right now on a real quick. This is a incognito, so there's no ad block software or anything else. If they are not monetizing this special, and I don't see any monetization on there, then they're not generating income. And if they're not generating income, well, then it's kind of hard to say that, whatever, right? But again, yeah, in the style of George Carlin disclaimer, it really is. It really is. I mean, the name of the thing is called I'm Glad I'm Dead Full Special, and you don't see his face. In fact, you don't see his face at all in any of this. So now Taylor says, when the point is to make it indistinguishable from the original, it's not fair use, it's infringement. But they're not making it indistinguishable from the original. They flat out say that it is not George Carlin, that it is an impersonation, right? That's kind of the whole point, is like they've offered enough of a disclaimer that I do think they are protected pretty legally. But then again, I mean, if like, let's say there's Kelly Carlin and the Carlin estate decides to file a lawsuit against Dudesy for making this, right? They try to do that. Okay, fine. So maybe other artists out there will contribute, right, to the legal fund as a way to set a precedent for what would be considered fair use versus protected works, things along those lines. I mean, all that's going to happen. But again, even going before a judge recently, GPT, Sarah Silverman was part of a class action lawsuit against GPT, claiming that they had ripped off her book, and that, and she was losing money as a result of this. So the judge was like, there's no feasible way that could happen. There's no reasonable way that could happen. So we're just like, so no, he kind of threw out that part of the case. She can refile. She might refile, but that's kind of where we are. Anyway, so it says here, George Carlin's daughter and keeper of his estate, Kelly Carlin, isn't laughing about a new AI generated special of supposedly new material by her father, her late father, titled "I'm Glad I'm Dead." As she posted on Twitter Wednesday night, zero permission granted. No, they don't. I think fair use would work under this. Kelly Carlin has had to deal with strangers misattributing quotes to her father or misappropriating his work since he died in 2008, from fake quotes and memes to rumors of holograms and now AI generated material in his name. So basically people on the internet just being inspired and wanting to just, do stupid shit. That's a lot of what it boils down to, but they're trying to make this out to be like people, harass, whatever. She says, even when my dad was alive, on the front page of his website was this big announcement saying the paradox of our time. This was something, what is it? There's okay. That's debunked by Snopes. Okay. Anyway, ChatGPT prompt went viral last March, wondering what George Carlin would say about the collapse of the Silicon Valley Bank. Made Kelly Carlin groan. Just fucking shoot me. Dudesy's George Carlin, I'm Glad I'm Dead, released on YouTube on Tuesday, has generated more than 161,000 views, more than tripling its view count in the past 24 hours. Although the video starts with the disclaimer that says what you're about to hear is not George Carlin, claiming it's merely an impersonation, like Will Ferrell impersonating George W. Bush. Kelly Carlin begs to differ. She's used to trying to chase down every false meme, but this is different. This is a whole other can of worms. I mean, ultimately, there's enough real George Carlin in the world that this little thing is not going to make a difference. But this is the tip of the spear. This is the barn door. You know how many metaphors I can use for this. We must take a stand as artists and those who take care of the legacies of artists. And again, this is what I'm saying. It's more or less, our WP here says, if it's not supposed to be George Carlin, then what's the point of even doing this? It's an impersonation. They wanted to see what it would be like. So, it says here, okay, this is an attempt at recreating what he would hypothetically say, but we really wouldn't know what he would actually say. Well, that's how you know it's an impersonation. That's going to be, look, I'm telling you, that's their get out of jail free card. That's kind of the whole point. Taylor here saying if somebody cuts the disclaimer and runs the rest, they're screwed. No, they're not screwed because they have the disclaimer on the original. If somebody removes that disclaimer in the beginning and the end and everywhere else that you can possibly have it, then the person who removes the disclaimer is the one that is going to be violating. Sorry, I needed some water. Anyway, the whole thing is just fascinating to me. So, and of course, this is happening right around the time we're coming off the strike. And that was a point of contention, even though it was largely overblown, as I pointed out multiple times throughout the course of the strike. But there is a lot of stuff here. All right. Like, so they say here that, so some other guy, this is Josh Gondelman, a stand-up comedian and former late-night TV writer who served as a strike captain, tells the Daily Beast that this AI comedy special proves their concerns were legitimate. No one ever said that their concerns weren't legitimate. It's just like the way that it was hyperbolized wasn't also accurate, right? It kind of did more damage the way that Fran Drescher ran things, saying there's an idea of someone's image being used in perpetuity, including after their death without consent or appropriate compensation. And the subtler worry here is that using material generated by artists to train AI, which is an ongoing legal issue, you can't really say write an hour of George Carlin material to a bot that has never ingested, analyzed George Carlin's previous material, which is definitely illegal / ethical gray area. But the thing is, though, they did ingested George Carlin's material into a bot in order to have a proper analysis to identify tone and pacing, comedic stylings, and things like that. So Kelly Carlin has plans to meet with WGA SAG representatives later on Thursday who are lobbying Congress around these issues. I'm very interested in what is happening legally on this front, she says. So yes, it's very much in alignment with both SAG and the Writers Guild really wanted to fight for, but the Screen Actors Guild is really helping people who are dead protect their name and likeness in a very unique way. But then again, just the other day, the Screen Actors Guild signed that deal with Replica to allow for artists to be compensated for AI usage of their voice. So, oh, here we go. So Will Sasso and Chad Kultgen, the duo behind the Dudesy platform that created the New Hour, have preferred to let their podcasts speak for them. So this is what they say.
If there's one comedian I really love who would have had a lot to say about everything going on in the world right now, it's George Carlin. So I watched and listened to all of his material to develop my impression of him, and I put together a brand new hour-long stand-up comedy special.
There's one line of work that is most threatened by AI, one job that is most likely to be completely erased because of artificial intelligence. Stand-up comedy. I know what all the stand-up comics across the globe are saying right now. I'm an artist, and my art form is too creative, too nuanced, too subtle to be replicated by a machine. No computer program can tell a fart joke as good as me.
This is fucking insane.
Well, let's see. This is just off the top of my artificially intelligent head. A fart was in the middle of a very nasty divorce, so she went to her sister's house, and she asked her sister, "Do you think I'm doing the right thing by getting divorced?" And her sister said, "He's been holding you back for too long. You have to leave that ass."
Oh, shit, dude. Snap. Yeah. Look at that part.
There you have it. Stand-up comedy is dead. Literally. I might be the first stand-up comic to be brought back from the dead by AI, but I certainly won't be the last. Richard Pryor, Joan Rivers, Bill Hicks, Robin Williams, Dick Gregory, Andy Kaufman, Moms Mabley, Sam Kinison, everybody's coming back. And we're all going to have our own 24-hour-a-day, 7-day-a-week, 365-day-a-year streams commenting on everything that's happening in the world as it happens. AI resurrected stand-up comedians are going to be the news anchors of the next decade,
oh my
which,
God, dude,
now that I think of it, means news anchors are probably out of a job too. And I know that some people are going to be against that. Some people are always going to want a real flesh and blood human being observing the world and telling jokes about it. And I get that. I really do. But if you can keep an open mind, I think I can make a case for at least one comedian we can all agree is better in AI form. Bill Cosby.
There's a whole bit in there about like Taylor Swift and like who she's fucking. That's really funny. And I agree with Spherical Man here. I mean, I love Carlin and all of his old specials, but a modern take is actually refreshing. It is. And that's the whole point about comedians. Comedians are almost like the jesters of the world. They tell everybody the truth and they do it in a way that doesn't get them beheaded. You know, no, well, here's the thing, Ray. Like, you know, there is a lack of vocal inflection at some points. And again, this is not something that is perfect. It's very much an impression. So it's, you're right. You're right. But I don't know necessarily if we are going to get to a point anywhere down the road where we are going to end up seeing, where we are going to end up seeing AI 24/7 shit. I think people are going to try it. Command Unit here with the $2 super chat. Thank you. Says AI supremacy. That could be a thing. I don't think it's going to be supremacy, but it's going to be fun. Taylor here, great point. Or AI dead comedian talk show. Yeah, think about that for a second, right? Think about that for a hot second. What if you had The View, but it was like Carlin, Pryor, Carl Reiner, you know, and like Sam Kinison or some shit like that. And they were just sitting around and like shooting the shit about what's actually going on in the world. But like I said, a lot of this stuff is done by humans. This was done by a human. The human did the performance. The AI put the filter on the voice. That's it. That's why it doesn't sound identical to Carlin. You can only impersonate the master. You won't ever actually replicate the master. And that's kind of the whole fucking point. That's why I wanted to talk about this thing tonight. Was because as we're talking about this, we're actually seeing an interesting scenario kind of play out. What we're seeing is an interpretation done in a way that is unique and it's interesting and it's getting a lot of attention. And that's only going to make the Dudesy podcast get bigger. And that's only going to make more people try to attempt this. But because the Dudesy guys are not telling you how they did it, I told you how they did it, how I believe they did it. Yeah, Tony McNeil here says, Carlin is my favorite comedian, and I actually enjoyed Dudesy's take on him. There's a lot of people that enjoy it. And I'm saying if you could bring back like Groucho Marx to tell jokes or some shit like that, would be pretty interesting. You know, there's again, what you're going to get is an impressionist that's going to be able to dive in and talk about this. Jess here, member for 28 months. Thank you, Jess. Says AI voice is a slippery slope just to bring back bankable actors. Sent a clip on the Transformer version, the Snyder Bros. Yeah, I'll show this real quick because I did see the one you're talking about, right? I did see this particular guy. You know, can I just download? Well, fuck it. Hold on. I was supposed to see if I could download it because I don't want to bring up. I don't like bringing up Facebook if I don't have to. God damn it. Okay, I can't download it. Oh shit. Okay. Darn it. Fucking Facebook is like the shittiest fucking app. Hold on. I gotta retweak some shit here. Give me a quick sec. Okay, there we go. All right, so here we go. This is the guy. This is the dude. Can I'm gonna. No, hold on.
Transformers next movie breaks 37-year Optimus Prime streak. Okay, stay with me. It's not serious, but it is. Okay. The streak they broke is that Peter Cullen, the voice of Optimus Prime, was not cast to voice Optimus Prime. Who'd they get instead? Chris Hemsworth. Okay. It's fantasy. It's robots. They talk. They're from outer space. I get all that. It's not that serious. But when you make a Transformers movie, the one thing that you have to do for it to be a Transformers movie is get Peter Cullen to be Optimus Prime. That's it. We don't go to Transformers movies for engaging plot lines and character development. We go so that when Optimus Prime turns into a big truck and he says, Autobots, roll out.
All right. Now, do I think that this is a next iteration of Snyder Bros? No, I don't. Because this is like the fandom menace for like Star Wars and Lucasfilm in general, right? Now, look, does this guy have a bit of a point? Like, yeah, Chris Hemsworth being the voice of Optimus Prime is going to be interesting, but it's also going to be highly, highly digitized and edited, right? You know, and he's not going to probably speak in like his Australian accent, his native tongue. He'll probably just use a normal American voice. And then maybe like, you know, maybe he'll pull from like the cockles of his balls to be deeper. Autobots roll out, or, you know, you got to do it right. Like Autobots roll out. I can't do it very well either. I got a deep fucking voice because I got huge balls. But I don't see this as being as bad as that, right? Because this isn't like, this is going to, I mean, look, if the movie's good, it's animated. So if it's good, it's good, you know. But I think, okay, so Jess here says, Chris Hemsworth is going to be Orion Pax, a younger Optimus Prime. Okay. Okay, so it's not so bad. It's not as big of a deal overall. But that's the AI George Carlin bit. I think it's interesting, and I quite frankly, if they were to release another special, which I think they will, just to kind of say fuck you to those guys, it's going to be probably a lot of fun, and I look forward to hearing it. Even I'll listen to any AI comedian special to see if they nail it, because it's just interesting. And it's more interesting than some of the things coming out of entertainment right now. You know, did you listen to Joy Coy? His fucking monologue from the Golden Globes? Trash. Absolute garbage. AI created a script based on George Carlin's own words that was entertaining, engaging, refreshing, and that's why it's a big deal.